Hey everybody, it's Bernie Gallerani bringing another episode of Success is Not Convenient. Guys, I so enjoy doing all of these videos and bringing these topics to you. And I know so many of you guys are watching it, and I want to thank each and every one of you. We're always working towards helping entrepreneurs become better in their direction and more powerful in their direction, and then also look in the mirror a little bit and are challenged with some of the behavior that we all have. My goal is to empower all of us to look at ourselves hard in the mirror and then ask ourselves how we can be better. And so we want to continue to keep bringing these things to you. We can see how many people are actually watching them, which is really great. We feel super blessed for that. But if I could ask you guys a favor to hit the subscribe button on here, it helps us quantify our level of success that we're having and allows us to keep working towards things that best interest each and every one of you. So thank you again for all of your time. Now let's get started on this. And I set this message today, been researching it now for a couple of weeks. And so I wanted to just bring some thoughts to you real quickly on kind of what goes on in here. And so here's the topic is don't set your limits. And what this means is don't set your limits based on what you believe is possible. I'm going to say this to you before we even begin. You can do 10 times more than what you're doing right now. And what I'm saying is whatever you think you're doing right now and whatever you think is possible for you right now. If we go into the year of 2026 here and say, I want to do X for my business, you can do 10 times that this year. And I believe I could do 100 times that this year. Now, I don't really understand how, but I actually know it's possible. And so what goes on inside of our brain really starts limiting our action. And I think what we have to do is kind of erase that. And people confuse the past of who they are to who they could become in the future. And what that means is we look at kind of our experience in the past, who we've been, how we act. We look at all of that and believe that that's actually who we are. And that is not who you are. That's just who you've been. And I've been challenged with this over the years. And so I want to challenge all of you guys that most of the limits that come from these types of things are all done from who you were in the past. And this is how it's always been. It's who you are is who you are. What you've experienced is who you are. How you think is what's got you here. And the brain wants you to have certainty, so it uses the history to cause you to believe who you are. Even though history has nothing to do with your capacity or your ability, your brain wants to shut you down based on what it knows. It wants to keep you safe. Now, how do we break it? We have to replace it. What we have to do is it requires me or requires us to question our growth, question why we are where we are, right? Because our brain wants to keep a ceiling on our level of production. And in reality, there is no ceiling. Write that down. We actually have no ceiling. We have no limitation. The brain wants us to think we have a limitation, and it creates that based on the history that you've had in the past. You know, I was at dinner, and I'll just say this to you. I was at dinner at an event recently, and it was a pretty powerful group of people, and somebody had a belief, and it was a fairly limited belief. I think most of the table realized it was a limited belief. But my mentor said, gosh, tell me a little bit about your childhood. What were your parents like? And what my mentor knew was that whatever that belief system was that was going on inside of their head was actually just a belief and not a reality, not a real truth. So number 2 on these 9 points is your limiting belief. It protects people from the level of responsibility that they need to have in order to grow. So I'm going to say it a different way. Your limiting beliefs protects people from the responsibility of what they have to do. I don't want you to take a risk, so I'm going to hold you back, so it makes you feel protected. And if you say, I'm not built for that, or that's just not me, like, you don't have to change your habits. You have to just raise your standards or risk embarrassment. And that's an interesting comment, because if you take a risk, you make yourself vulnerable. Being vulnerable is something that really nobody wants. People don't like being vulnerable. Who wants to put yourself in a position where vulnerability and any sort of embarrassment is things that people want to identify with? I don't like that in my life, but yet at the same time, it has to happen in order for you to grow. Number 3 is people fear identity loss more than they fear failure. So like you care more about how people think about you. I think the biggest problem that I've learned from entrepreneurs, business people, salespeople, whatever you want to call it, is they're too busy worrying about what other people think. And if you're going to grow as a person, growth requires you shedding the old identity of who you were. That's the safe one, the one that actually is protected, the balanced one, right? The talented one, but not the obsessive one. Limits keep identities intact. And what it's saying is, why go out and reach outside of that? Because you don't have to go outside and reach outside of that. You can stay nice and cozy in the belief system that you have. I'll give you a thought of how to break that. It says, who do I need to stop being in order to become who I want? That's where the real work comes in. There's a great book. I've said it probably, 4, 5, 6 times on this podcast. There's a great book that identifies this exact same thing of who you need to become. And there's a book by Daryl Rutherford called Being the Solution. I have bought that book for people. I've said it 100 times, maybe even more. People should buy that book. For me, it was very impactful because it identified why I was safe. And what I realized in the process of being safe is that there is no certainty in life. There is no safe zone. We're all vulnerable to something. So if you're going to be vulnerable and you want to change who you are and put yourself in a position where people will admire you for the work that you do, you have to take a risk and get out of your box. I know it's a hard one for most people to understand, but taking a risk to get out of your box is challenging because the brain wants to protect us. What we need to do is say, quiet brain, I'm not listening to you anymore. My dreams, my goals, and my ambitions are much greater than the brain telling me to be safe. Number 4, society trains people to be more realistic. No danger, right? Our whole society is built on that. So what's fun is if you look at it, most people walk around life being safe, realistic, cautious. And I'm not blaming those people who do that, but I can tell you that most of those people probably don't have dreams. And if big dreams, and if they do, they're never going to succeed in ever seeing them come to fruition because they're too busy protecting. See, what happens is from a young age, people are rewarded for being reasonable and cautious and modest, not for thinking big or even pushing the extremes. It's easier to be safe than it is to be somebody who goes out and takes a risk. Now, I use the word risk because I'm not sure the word risk is even the right word to use. It's pushing yourself past your comfort zone. And what I have found in most of the pushing myself past the comfort zone is there's not risk, there's just uncomfortableness. And the uncomfortableness only comes from me changing what I normally do that makes me feel safe. So I recently had something inside of my company where I made a decision that growth was my only option and protection I had to let go of. And so when my mentor said to me, you can protect or you can grow, but you can't do both together. Write that one down. You can protect or you can grow, but you cannot do those two things together. Because if you want to grow, it's going to take a part of you to do something that makes you feel uncomfortable. And for you, it seems risky, but in reality, it probably isn't. We're going to go to number 5. People outsource belief to others. This is a great one because where we talk about your history, your family, your teachings from your parents, the people that influence you in your life, right? Bosses, your peers, unintentionally, what they do, and they don't do it purposefully because they're living their life, but they unintentionally hand down a ceiling of what they believe is possible for you. I've told the story before, and I'll tell it here and again. But what happens is, and I'll tell you the story of someone who questioned me and the answer I gave, but most people never even question where their limits come from. They just look at it and go, well, that's just who I am. That's just who you're being. I love those people go, well, Bernie, that's just not me. No, because that makes you feel uncomfortable, but growth comes in being uncomfortable. I had a young man come to me one time, and I'm going to go back 18 years. I've told this story before. And he had this great idea, and I didn't think it was all that great of an idea. Actually, I thought it was stupid. Thank goodness the guy didn't listen to me because I told him all the reasons why he couldn't do it. He told me all the reasons why he had a dream to do it. And guess what he did? He went and did it. And he sold the company for multi-millions of dollars and today is a millionaire on the idea that I told him was dumb. Am I embarrassed by that? Sure, a little bit, but I will say this to you. I want to say it to you because you're probably listening to somebody who's limiting your beliefs. So how do you break it? You have to audit your beliefs. who gave me this idea? Have they actually achieved what I want? See, what I'm a believer in, I'm not listening to anybody that hasn't done what I'm doing. I had a friend of mine, and I'm just going to say he's a friend of mine, still a friend, loved him to death, who I was telling him a story of a friend of mine who had a level of success. And you could see that he was a little snarly at the conversation. He's like, oh, I don't believe that. Oh, that can't happen. Oh, if he does that, just one of those negative Nancys that wanted to bring you down. And so within 7 years of starting this business that I was bragging to my friend about, my friend sold the business after 7 years for $95 million. Now, it was my friend, not my friend who sold the business. I'm sure he heard his own level of limiting beliefs from the people he was trying to achieve his goals from. But when I was sharing the level of success and excitement I had for my friend, the other friend was like, oh, no, I don't believe that'll ever happen. $95 million. Thank God that my friend who sold his company for $95 million didn't listen to my neighbor. You follow what I'm saying? And so what you have to understand is you have a dream. Don't listen to anybody else. Do not do it. Number 6 says, comfort creates false conclusions. It kind of goes back to that book I was talking about with Dale Rutherford, where the Being Solution book, where you kind of live in this little box and you're comfortable, and everything outside this box is where you're uncomfortable. And what the brain does is it just assumes to tell you that everything's okay. See, the brain tries to protect you. It's not real. It's not real at all. We just think it's real. And so what we have to do is we have to change our limiting beliefs by just pushing ourselves past where we think we're comfortable into what we think is uncomfortable. So you have to choose your limit. You aren't told your limit, you choose it. And if you choose to be comfortable with what your brain tells you is comfortable, that's where you are. Nothing wrong with that. I don't want anybody to feel like they're not successful based on where they're at. I'm talking to entrepreneurs starting their business. I'm talking to entrepreneurs who have a successful business, and I'm talking to very, very successful people who need to go to the next level. I might be talking to somebody who's much more successful than I am. And here's my thought on all of this. Wherever you're at, there's more. Whatever you think you have, there's more. And what we have to do is we have to change our limiting beliefs. And there's a lot to this, probably for another podcast, but this is all about how we approach things based on what we know. Number 7, people mistake emotion for truth. Man, I read a book, and I can't think of, it was somewhat recently, and it talked about how emotions are overrated. And I can tell you that I've experienced this, is that we get all excited with emotions. What emotion does is it's fearful, it's doubtful, it has a high level of anxiety. It's almost like it's giving you a signal, but it's nothing more. Emotions is nothing more than growth. You can be nervous and upset, doubt yourself, all those emotions come up. See, most people just stop when it feels hard, not when it's actually impossible. And that's what you want you to do is it possible? Yes. The next thing is it going to be hard? Yes. So how you break it is you have to treat emotion as weather. It's not a GPS for discomfort. It doesn't mean stop. It just means stretch. It means take yourself beyond where you are right now. You're going to feel discomfort. When you make the decision, you're going to feel discomfort. But what I want us all to do is this. When we plan something that excites us, because I'm a believer, when you write something down, I believe in writing your goals down. If you write your goals down and it excites you, you're like really excited. And then you start taking steps towards the things you wrote down, you are going to run across some obstacles, some challenges, right? Not failures, but just ways not to do it that way because you're on a path. I did a podcast, I don't know, probably 6-8 months ago, and I was talking about making corrections. And someone recently came up to me and said, hey, I've been watching your podcast and I love your analogy about driving a car. And I said, yes. And so I'm going to share it with you here on this one. When you drive a car and you get in it right now and you drive down the street, you're making 100 corrections to get to the next corner. So that car wants to veer left, it wants to veer right. Your foot wants to go faster. You got the brake. You got to make decisions. And that's all entrepreneurship is. It's moving forward and making small decisions. See, what happens is we get in a car and we don't think about it because it's so ingrained in our personality, like in our skill level. Like if you remember when you were 16 years old, you started driving a car, just keeping it in the lane, right? Your parents are probably yelling at you. You got to do this. You're going too slow. You're going too fast. You got to watch for this. You got to watch for that. But what happens in time is you don't even think about that anymore. You're driving the car. You're not thinking about keeping in the lane. It's just staying in the lane because your subconscious mind is kicked in. You're not worried about going too fast or too slow because you have a subconscious mind that understands what you should be doing. Your thought process when you're older is not the same thought process when you're 15 and trying to figure out how to drive a car. Making decisions to grow is the same exact thing. Making a big decision for your business might be a really small decision for other business owners. And for some of us, the decision you have to make that is really paralyzing your ability is not paralyzing us at all because we make those decisions every day. But we had to start somewhere, like driving the car. There's a lot of decisions we make that we don't even think about anymore that other people find disturbing, right? Like, oh man, I could never do that. Sure you can. Just don't have a limiting belief. Fair enough, right? Number 8, small thinking avoids public exposure. This is like seriously one of my biggest, most powerful ones here. Big goals expose people to judgment. Limiting beliefs shrink the audience and lower the risk of being seen, trying, and even failing. Let's go deeper on this one. Small thinkers who don't accomplish anything fantastic for themselves limit their level of exposure to people, judgment of other people, naysayers of other people. When you think small, you're limiting other people creating pressure or having conversation with you about the goals that you have. Big goals expose people, meaning you have big goals, exposes you to judgment by other people. It allows other people to have limiting beliefs. You have a lot less people in your corner that believe in you. Low thinkers, call them normal thinkers, right? Unchallenged behavioral thinkers. What it does is it allows you to be in everybody's graces, is it allows you to be accepted by more people. I remember starting out, and still I don't know if it's any different today, but I remember starting out and doing the work that I was doing. It was a challenge. I had a lot of people that didn't really accept and or believe in the process that I moved forward within my business. And I looked at it and went, I know why I'm doing it. I understand the success that is involved here by doing it. And I'm not really looking for you to give me approval. If you do give me approval, I'll take it, pat you on the back and say thank you. If you don't give it to me, I don't care. I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing this for myself and my family. And that's something that we all need to understand, right? How we have to break this process of thinking is decide that being seen, trying more important growth ideas allows you to experience things other people won't experience. And when other people can't see it, they want to bring you down. So you have to decide of who you're going to be. You have to decide how important that is for you. And I think in the end, you're going to find that all the comments and the people who were naysayers, they're not your friends anyway. And if they were, great. They can still be your friend, but you're going to show them anyway how successful you can be. Number 9, limits disappear when standards rise. Oh my gosh, this is such a good one. As you start limiting yourself, as you limit yourself, but you exceed and you push through that, you start seeing this happening and you start caring less. And so what happens is the limits start to disappear, the belief starts to show up, the standards start to rise, which means that your action steps start to have more purpose. See, people don't need more confidence. They actually need higher standards. Belief follows behavior. So if you believe in who you are and you create a standard behind the belief you have, the behavior automatically follows next. It's not the other way around. You don't have to have this goal and say, I'm going to do this. You have to have a belief in a standard. Because if you have a belief in a standard, right, there's a great one in Daryl's book. It talks about the be, do, have mentality. And the old saying is do, have, be. Do, have, be, do, have, be. So you do the work, you have the stuff, you be the person. For example, if you want to be a millionaire in a business that you're operating, you say, I have to do the work, I have to do, I then be, and then I have. It really is who are you being before you ever do or have. So that's the thing I want everyone to understand. It's not a do, have, be mentality. It's a be, do, have mentality. Be the person first. So what happens is you have to raise your standards and let the mind scramble to catch up. Your brain will either adapt or it'll get the hell out of the way. Your brain tries to take over, but your desire has to be so much more powerful than your brain. You're like, well, that's crazy, my brain. Yeah, your brain wants to keep you down. See, it thinks it has logic because the only thing the brain knows is what its past is. That's the only thing it knows. It knows the path. And when you break down the path, the past behavior, the past beliefs, the past thinking, the fear, the uncomfortableness, the naysayers, your brain wants to listen to it because it's listened to it for however old you are. If you're 25 for 25 years, if you're 35 for 35 years, if you're in your 50s for 50 years, if you're in your 60s for 60 years, your brain is used to you and how you behave. But when you tell the brain to get out of the way, there's going to be some discomfort because the brain's going to fight you because it wants to protect you. Hear me, folks. The brain is not right. It's only used to what it's used to, and it wants to protect you outside of what it's comfortable with. You have to create a new comfort zone for you. Don't ask your brain how you feel. Overcome your feelings because emotional direction is overrated. You cannot look at emotions. Emotions in regards to like, what if? I want you to say, what if it does work? What if what I'm doing is actually going to put me on a path of success? What if my whole life changes and this thing works out? The reason why I know that's powerful is that's what happened to me. I hope you guys have all enjoyed this message today. I loved doing this research on this. If you guys have any questions or concerns, please feel free to write a comment. I'll do my best to respond to them. I hope everybody has an awesome day today.